What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Monday Football Monday here on the SB Nation NFL show. We want to remind you before we get started that this show is brought to you by DraftKings. DraftKings Sportsbook is an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app today and use code SBNFL for a special offer when you sign up. That's code SBNFL only at DraftKings Sportsbook. This, as mentioned, is a Monday following a Sunday of NFL action. We are tying a bow on week 2. My name is RJ Ochoa from SB Nation's Blogging the Boys. We're about to run through basically every game that happened on Sunday. You can watch us on the SB Nation NFL Facebook page, Twitter page, or YouTube channel, and you can listen wherever you get your podcasts on the SB Nation NFL show. Make sure you subscribe, leave a rating, write a review. The fantastic Rachelle Prevet, as always, is on the ones and twos and providing us with some eclectic musical taste, as always, from SB Nation's Arrowhead Pride. He had Sunday off thanks to a huge Thursday night win by the Kansas City Chiefs. It is the one and only Pete Sweeney. Pete, how did you spend your Sunday void of Kansas City Chiefs action?
Yeah, I got together with some friends. Usually I'm the one at the stadium, and I was able to join my pals. Yeah, I was able to join my pals at one of the local establishments. We had a nice time watching the games where like every game was on the TV. We didn't even watch Red Zone. I just had every game available to me.
You created a red zone, like in a much more difficult way.
Correct.
Right. Gotcha.
I actually realized that I prefer that. I prefer Scott Hansen telling me what I should be watching as opposed to having to keep my head on a swivel to see what's going on at all times.
Right. 7 hours of commercial, yes. Whatever it is.
Right.
Well, one of the games you saw, Pete, we are going to go through all of them, obviously, lots of action, but one of the games you saw involved one of your favorite teams, right? You love the Detroit Lions. You're a big fan of the 3-1-3.
That's right. Motor
That's
City.
All you have to say? Just
Motor City.
Home of Eminem, home of Nickelback. I mean, there's a lot to be excited about when it comes to the Detroit Lions.
Mom Spaghetti.
Got their first win of the season on Sunday against the Washington Commanders. And to break it all down with us from SB Nation's Pride of Detroit, one of my favorite people in NFL lore, NFL universe, the galaxy of really all things. Jeremy Reisman from Pride of Detroit joins us now on the SB Nation NFL show. Jeremy, first of all, what is the last meal that you ate and how good was it?
Well, first of all, we do not claim Nickelback. They are a Canadian band. I need to get that out of the way. Like the stats department, correction department here. We do not claim Nickelback. But good question. I think I had a couple of breakfast sandwiches today and haven't had a Victory Monday breakfast sandwich in September in what feels like a very long time. So one of the better ones, I would say.
Well, everybody, by the way, make sure to follow Jeremy on Twitter at Detroit Online. Maybe you can see some photos of some breakfast sandwiches in the future. You mentioned like a breakfast thing. The Detroit Lions, Jeremy, tweeted out, I'm sure you saw a joke based on the horrible mug that the Commanders made last week for their season opener, celebrating the win. The Detroit Lions 1-1. Was this finally the breaking of the dam? Was this the justifying of all the hype? Was this the arrival of Dan Campbell's Detroit Lions here in the 2022 season?
Oh man, I guess the cheap answer there is we'll see. Obviously, it's easy to put up one good performance, right? And really, it was arguably just one really, really good half of performance. They were up 22-0 at the half there. But there are a lot of things to really like about this team, and chief among them, I think, is the young nucleus of them, and them just like really taking over. Aiden Hutchinson with 3 sacks in one half of football. You got Amon-Ra continuing his dominance in year 2. DeAndre Swift was very limited in this game, only had 7 touches, but made the most out of them with a 50-yard run and an amazing 21 fall down and catch and get up and run for a touchdown. So you're really starting to see the young pieces bring this team together. And, considering the Lions have one of the youngest rosters in the NFL and maybe the youngest roster with all the injuries they've already had to deal with, you have to believe that the trajectory of this team is probably only up.
Yeah, I've seen the Lions these past couple of weeks, and they're going off on some long runs. We're talking multiple 50-yard runs. What have you seen from the offensive line when it comes to run blocking?
It's kind of fantastic, and it's worth noting that yesterday the Lions were missing their starting left guard, center, and right guard. All 3 of those guys were out, so they had a tackle playing left guard who's never played or never started in an NFL game in Dan Skipper.
Dan
Skipper.
Really
cool story. Yes, Dan Skipper.
Plug that, please, Jeremy. Plug that.
Yeah.
Story.
Yeah, so he's been around for 6 years in the NFL and has never made an initial 53-man roster. And and Dan Campbell chose to kind of have him be the first player available to the media last night. And for good reason. Like it's a tremendous story. He talked about how he's probably signed 20 NFL contracts and they're not worth the paper that they're written on, which was a really nice quote from him. But he had his family in attendance and really played a really decent game as well at left guard. And combined with all these other kind of patchwork guys, I think the Lions are top 5 in yards per carry before contact. And I think that really tells the entire story, because when DeAndre Swift is 4 yards downfield and there hasn't been a hand placed on him, well, yeah, then he's going to break off 50 because he can make that first guy miss pretty darn consistently. And last year, the Lions had 1 rush of 50-plus yards all season. They already have 3 this year. So I don't think that's a complete coincidence. They're not going to keep up that pace. That's a ridiculous pace. But again, if the offensive line is putting in the work like they are so far, they're going to have a lot of 20-plus yard runs. And I think that sort of thing might be consistent.
The season is really young, Jeremy, obviously. I mean, we're at a point where not even every team has played 2 games, at least at the time of this recording. But DeAndre Swift does look like one of the better running backs in the NFL. Like that isn't an exaggeration. I mean, we have some of the top like names like the Christian McCaffreys of the world or just whatever, but like DeAndre Swift feels like he's knocking at the door to be one of those top guys. The production's there. You mentioned the limited touches on Sunday. Obviously there was a huge amount of work for him and Jamal Williams over the last 2 weeks, but does it feel that way? Like if you power ranked the Lions players, like where does DeAndre Swift fall for you?
Yeah, I would say going into the season, he's top 10, but probably towards the bottom of that top 10. Now it feels like he's firmly in the top 5 because we've seen flashes through the first 2 years of his career, but injuries have kind of held him up a little bit. And there's been some drops in the receiving game, some inconsistencies with his reads, especially running between the tackles. But the coaching staff has really, really drilled it home to him. And I mean, you saw it in Hard Knocks. If you watch Hard Knocks, there are a couple scenes where Deuce Staley is pulling him aside and, telling him like, don't just run out of bounds, lower your shoulder and throw up a stiff arm, cutting through the middle. Don't trust your eyes, because we know if you fire through that middle, you're getting to the second level and beyond. And he really seems to have taken to this coaching staff quite a bit. The injury stuff is still a mild to medium concern with him. He's battling an ankle injury right now. But one of the interesting things this offseason is Deuce Staley said to the public in front of a podium, said DeAndre Swift needs to learn playing hurt versus playing injured, which is it's kind of a starking statement. Like you're almost calling out his toughness publicly. And again, it's really a challenge that he's giving to Swift. And you have to say so far, he played more than 50% of the snaps last afternoon against Washington. May have only had 7 touches, but pretty gritty effort, you have to say, for a guy like that. And that matches what they're trying to build here.
On the other side of it, you have the passing game. Jared Goff, 20 of 34, 256 yards, and the 4 touchdowns. Do you get the sense that maybe Jared Goff is settling into the offense at this point, and he has the team support when it comes to being able to trust a guy to potentially lead you to the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, he definitely has the team support. They've been maybe overly so supportive of him since he came here. And I think part of that was by design, right? They're trying to build up the guy's confidence after, an embarrassing end to his Rams career that has to be kind of humiliating for him. And building up a quarterback's trust has to be kind of number one on the priority list. And I think they've done that pretty well and surrounded him with a really good cast of guys. I think Lions fans are split right now. And I consider myself among those guys. He's still, bottom 10 in the league in terms of completion percentage above expectation. He's -8%, which I think is bottom 5. So he hasn't been outstanding thus far. And I think the box score is a little bit misleading from his performance on Sunday, but at the same time, he came up big in that fourth quarter. He had a drive late in the game when Washington was storming back. It's a 1-score game and he goes 4 for 4 and just perfect placement on all 4 of those passes, and eventually finishes with a touchdown, which is another thing the Lions have been really good about. I think I don't know what the number is at right now, but I think it's like 17 straight quarters with a touchdown, which leads the NFL right now. And I mean, you just wouldn't expect that out of someone like Jared Goff, right? Like that's not the MO, but 35 plus points in 3 straight games going back to last season. And I guess that's what you get.
We talked about DeAndre Swift. We talked about Jared Goff. Pete mentioned Amon-Ra St. Brown. I know he tied a team record, right? What was the exact record?
Yeah, so I think he tied the a team record of consecutive games with 8+ catches, and I think he broke an NFL record of 8+ catches plus a touchdown in every game.
Okay, well, so he's kind of like flirting with superstar territory, and I say this with all due respect. You know this better than I do, but like it's hard to become a superstar playing for the Detroit Lions, right? It's just one of those teams that don't have a lot of national attention, and that's really kind of changed certainly over the last year. The Dan Campbell effect, the Hard Knocks effect, but I feel like if the second overall pick had 3 sacks in his second career game, for a lot of other teams, that would be like the leading thing. And we've talked about, again, no disrespect to DeAndre Swift, but like DeAndre Swift ahead of him. Aiden Hutchinson had 3 sacks. I mean, like he seems like the first true, and I'm curious for you to tell me, like the first true opportunity to plant a flag in the superstar club for the Detroit Lions in a way that I just haven't personally seen a player be. He has the personality, he has the pedigree, he's the homegrown guy, high draft pick, like all the boxes are checked for him, and now the performance is there as well.
Yeah, no, and I was thinking this to myself last night. I feel like the Lions have a set of stars, and once the wins start coming, that's when the national attention comes. And I think a guy like Swift and Amon-Ra, they get a certain amount of attention just because of fantasy football, right? Like,
right.
You can't ignore what Amon-Ra has done in the past 7 or 8 games. And I think that has, like you said, kind of put him right on the edge of superstardom, which I think is also kind of fascinating considering he's not one of those like prototype outside wide receivers who are getting jump balls and highlight reels. Like his highlight reels are just him running, right? Like he's not doing anything particularly fantastic with his route running or mossing anybody or anything like that. He's just so solid in everything. And maybe the thing that gets him the most respect inside the building is his run blocking. He's just such a high effort guy when it comes to that. And the comparisons to Hines Ward, I think, are apt. And I think that's where the guy's potential is too. Like he's not that necessarily guy that if he's in one-on-one coverage, you're going to throw it up to him every time, but he's just so solid in everything else that, he's borderline superstardom. And then, Aiden Hutchinson again, early in his career, but 3.5 sacks for a rookie is something that has just only been done, I think, a handful of times ever. And again, if the Lions turn this corner and start winning football games and start contending for divisions and playoff spots, I think you can line up maybe 4 or 5 guys that have superstardom quality with Swift, with Amon-Ra. I mean, the dirty little secret here with this Lions offense that's been playing so well is Jamison Williams is a month away from returning to the field and adding a whole new dimension. And I think they're really excited about that player. Malcolm Rodriguez, not just a Hard Knocks star too. Let's be clear. This guy is an outstanding run defender, and I think he's only going to get better in pass coverage as well. So I think there's a lot of interesting names here that if you don't know them already, maybe in a year or two, the national audience will.
Jeremy, last one. Did you pick Hines Ward, or is that the collective opinion because he won MVP of a Super Bowl at Ford Field?
No, I think the comparisons honestly just kind of come naturally, and those comparisons were already being made his rookie season in training camp by his wide receivers coach, another guy who's made a couple of Super Bowl plays in
his teammate, Hines' teammate,
exactly, Antoine Randall.
He threw a touchdown in that game.
That's right. That's right. So maybe there's a little bit of bias there, but I mean, just watch the guy play and try not to think of Hines Ward.
Well, all that's really well said. Thanks for the insight, Jeremy. prideofdetroit.com. The podcast, I mean, the Pride of Detroit people do such a great job. Jeremy does an incredible job overseeing everything that happens over there. On Twitter at Detroit Online. Jeremy, make sure the next thing you eat is not a breakfast sandwich. Mix it up. You know what I mean? Like basic food groups.
Breakfast food is so good though.
That's right. Yeah. Don't let RJ sway you in one way or another. You eat what you want to eat.
Thank you. Thanks, fellas.
Have a great day, Jeremy. Thanks for joining us. Pete Sweeney, the Detroit Lions took down your WFT on Sunday afternoon. Sorry about that. I just want everybody to know, we jumped into the interview. I was running late. Pete, Rachel, professionals. Jeremy, professional. RJ was running late. But something else everybody has to know, Pete Sweeney, I'm wearing the Victory Polo.
That's right.
Victory Polo is back. The Dallas Cowboys won on Sunday. We'll get to that. You have the opposite of a Victory Polo going on. Chiefs did not play. This isn't like a loser's shirt. Like you have the soft hoodie. Like literally the team I covered did nothing on Sunday. I'm here to just provide nothing in that sense.
Yeah, I got a little bit of a growl fit going on. You don't really see, but I also have gray sweatpants, so it's a good look for me.
Now. Do you have black socks, or are we talking white socks here?
I'm barefoot right now.
Okay, so everybody knows.
This is the beauty of 2022. You can do a podcast for covering the whole league, and you don't have to be wearing shoes or socks, really.
Wow. Well, if you're not, you generally won't get into most establishments. But it is what it is. That was unexpected. Pete showed us his foot. Okay, Pete, are you ready to fly through every single game that happened? The MF double MVP is up for grabs. You sadly took it from me last week.
Right.
But
most weeks I do. I mean, we got to keep that in mind too.
Wow. Well, Jeremy was great. Maybe he'll win it. Who knows if Rachel is feeling that way. Rachel's feeling one kind of way because the Baltimore Ravens fell to the Miami Dolphins. Give us the Dolphin sound drop, Pete. 42-38, the final score. Tua Tagovailoa tossed 6 touchdowns as the Miami Dolphins soared back from a 21-point deficit in the fourth quarter. An amazing stand-up, scream who you are game for Mike McDaniel's Miami Dolphins. Pete, your thoughts on the city where the heat is on?
Well, I think we had a question with Tua as to was he capable of this type of performance. And, you talk about the 6 touchdowns. It wasn't only that, it was needing these touchdowns to win the game in the fourth quarter because your team had been down, 35-14 and just no quit. And we also wondered if there would be enough touches for someone like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. And then they answered that with an exclamation point as well. 11 catches apiece, each of them over 170 yards for 4 total touchdowns. And Mike McDaniel is making this work, right? I don't think anyone is going to say that Tua is among the top 5 or perhaps even the top 10 in the NFL. But I think what yesterday proved is you can not only win with Tua, but you can win a big game and against one of the better teams in the AFC. And just the fact that you're down 35-14. And I was impressed that there was never any quit. They just stayed with it and were able to battle back and win in the fourth quarter.
I really was stunned. I mean, I picked the Ravens in our SB Nation experts pick. I know you did too. This kind of felt like, oh, cool. I'm, another win, chalk it up, another whatever. And it was like the blink of an eye. Like this was the game that you mentioned, Scott Hanson, like you just kind of kept coming back to. And the first and even second scores were like, okay, cool. This is just like some garbage time that's only helping out the fantasy community. But no, I mean, what an impressive, Goonies never say die sort of moment for the Dolphins. I do want to ask you have your finger on the pulse of this more than I do. I think the class of the AFC, and we'll see what happens tonight on Monday Night Football. I think we both believe in the Bills though, is the Bills and the Chiefs, right? Like they're a tier above everybody else. We're in agreement here. I think a tier below them are the Ravens and the Chargers, right? Like that feels fair. Like they're kind of a step back. They have some warts, whatever. The next tier is, I don't know if the Bengals are even there right now. Like I said, we'll get to that, but I think the Dolphins are there. Like, I don't think it's ridiculous to say that the Dolphins are better than half of the AFC West. The Dolphins are better than half of the AFC East. They might be better than almost all of the AFC North if things shake a right way. Like they're better than the Bengals. They're better than the Ravens. They beat them. I mean, the Dolphins are really, really, really good right now. I mean, what I love about them, my last point. People said, like, how's this going to work? Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. They have both. What a problem having multiple dynamic, fast, shifty players.
I think that every year we go into the NFL season, you get these teams that are in 2 categories where you thought they were going to be really good and they end up being not such a good team. And you have these teams that come out of the woodwork and suddenly they've arrived in a sense. And a lot of times it's teams we never expected to be there. Right. And I feel like the Dolphins, everyone felt like, okay, they're getting Tyreek Hill. Let's see how they develop. We'll see if Waddle can develop. Maybe they're 1 year away. Maybe if Tua can do it, maybe they make the postseason next year. But this performance against the Ravens, you're suddenly, I think, paying attention to them. They certainly feel like a playoff team right now. And I'm almost positive about that, which is a lot to say about a Miami Dolphins team that I don't think we expected to be there.
Dolphins next 4 weeks. They have the Bills on Sunday. Cannot wait for that game. Then after that, things, they're at Cincinnati. Man, that's Thursday night football. That's going to be a great Thursday night football game. And really kind of the Bengals will, like, what happens to them? What do they look like in 2 weeks? But anyway, then they get the Jets, cool, who we'll touch on right next. And then the Vikings. Like, I'm really, really pumped. I can't remember a time where I was this excited to watch a Miami Dolphins team. So kudos to Mike McDaniel. On the other side of things, I think the Ravens will be all right. Rashad Bateman had a great moment. Lamar Jackson's what a mistake by the Ravens to not pay him. Like, he is so incredible. Like, all he is doing is making more and more and more money.
I hope he hits the open market. This was an MVP performance, even though they ended up losing 42-38, but 318 yards, no picks. He has 119 and a touchdown on the ground. Just that vintage version of Lamar Jackson for his MVP year, where it's a shame that they lost this game because he pretty much was dominant, and the defense couldn't hold up against this. Hill and Waddle thing is scary for opposing teams. I mean, they almost mirror each other in a sense, and and you saw that when they're cooking, it can be impossible to stop. And I think after Lamar Jackson really performed well, that the Ravens defense just couldn't hold up, and that was the story of this game.
That Lamar MVP season in 19 got started off with a win in Miami. I mean, so when these two teams meet, birds of a feather. These aren't actually both birds, but anyway, let's move on, Pete. The new
one is a fish.
Right? Is it a fish? I don't think it's technically a fish.
A dolphin is a fish. Yeah.
I don't think so. Anyway,
yeah, it is.
Okay. New game. Pete has to provide a sound effect for the winning team. Every game we talk about, which is literally every game. So the New York Jets, Pete, defeated the Cleveland Browns 31-30. Give us your Jets sound effect.
Jets, Jets.
It was low-hanging fruit, but it is often the sweetest. Joe Flacco helped engineer a fourth quarter that saw the Jets snatch victory away from the jaws of defeat. Pete, I'll be straight up. All right, I've talked a lot of smack about Robert Saleh. I think all of it is still pretty substantiated, but Robert Saleh said it is so rare that somebody goes out on a limb in such a kind of incredulous way, the way Robert Saleh did. I'm taking receipts. I've got receipts. Everybody's gonna rue the day that they talked about the New York Jets, and that looked pretty stupid for most of this game. But then all of a sudden, Robert Saleh's Jets dug in. Garrett Wilson broke out. We're talking about all sorts of receivers. We gave the Jameson Williams love with Jeremy. I mean, what a game for the Jets. What an awesome win for the New York Jets. I can't remember maybe the Mike White game last year, but this was an epic win for the Jets.
Cleveland should be sick. Really. I mean, you are up 30-17, and there's essentially no time in the game left, right? I mean, you're up 2 scores. There was a complete blown coverage. You couldn't get an onside kick, and then with less than 20 seconds left, it was the Wilson touchdown, and it just was stolen. I mean, it was in the blink of an eye too. This all happened in the last 2 minutes of the game, right? So the game was over. I mean, it felt over, and then all of a sudden the Jets win, and you talk about Robert Saleh and the Saleh experience, and it's one of these guys who you were starting to doubt, and he really, really, really needed a win like this one, and now we'll see if the Jets can build upon it.
Yeah, and I don't know that anybody's feeling bad for the Browns. Okay, you lost. We're cool. You know what I mean? We're all good with this.
Right.
Yeah. So
that's the tough part about Cleveland now is again, I think I said it last week where you're rooting for Jacoby Brissett, such a great guy, but you don't want to see the Cleveland Browns in the playoffs or sniffing a title with everything that's happened with that organization. So the Jets pull it out, and we'll see. I tend to think this is a team that, we're not considering a postseason team, and I don't necessarily think that this is the start of something. I think this is just one of these weird occurrences that we saw at the end of a game that sometimes happens in the NFL.
This could be the start of something new.
No, I'm saying no. I'm saying no to that.
So
and no to
right
this. Yeah.
to be here with you. Anyway, we were like this Jets comeback away from there being a take from some gross person about how the Browns are 2-0 and they're going to be a playoff. I'm just so happy we don't have to live in that reality. Another reality that I am thrilled to live in, Pete Sweeney. I got a lot of tweets about this.
Okay.
A lot of tweets. My lock of the week last week on the look ahead was the Jacksonville Jaguars as 3.5-point underdogs. That was pretty good against, I'm not even going to call them the Indianapolis Colts anymore. The Indianapolis frauds. That's what they are. They are frauds with a capital F, capital R, capital AUDS. Frauds. Getting blanked by the Jaguars. Oh, Carson, he took us to Jacksonville and we lost. It was all his fault. You've lost 8 games in a row. The Jaguars have been one of the worst teams in the NFL collectively since 2015, right? Like if we looked at every team in the NFL from 2015 till now, I know they had the darling season in 2017, but the Jaguars have been one of the worst teams in the NFL in that entire span, and they have never lost to the Colts at home. They are 8-0 in that stretch of time since 2018. Shout out to Zach Kiefer of The Athletic who highlighted this. The Jaguars have won just 15 games at home. I feel like Patrick Mahomes won 15 games every month. All right. The Jaguars have won 15 games at home since 2018. 5 have come against the Colts. Matt Ryan's going to fix us. Everything's going to be great. Frank Reich, his offense is so innovative. Chris Ballard, he built a monster of a team. Frauds, loser frauds that got punched in the mouth and are one of the worst teams in the NFL. They should be 0-2. They have entered, Pete, their 2 fourth quarters down by a combined score of 44-3 this season.
Yeah. You took it away there. I think the problem that you had with Matt Ryan was he was constantly under pressure, right? And Matt Ryan, if he is going to succeed, he is not one of these guys that's fleet of foot and is going to be able to Patrick Mahomes or, Josh Allen, Herbert his way, out of the pocket and throw on the run. No, this is like one of these classic stationary quarterbacks. And when he's getting hit 11 times by to be a pretty good Jaguars defense, you're not going to have success. Yeah. And we were wondering, okay, which one of these teams in the NFL is going to be the first where you start to have folks on the hot seat. And very quickly here, and to your credit, RJ, you've been pumping this. It does seem like Indianapolis might be that team where you start to wonder if this continues to go south. They got the Kansas City Chiefs up next after losing 24-0 to the Jaguars here. Is this something is this a team where you might see some mid-season changes happening? Because I think they're at that point.
The Indianapolis Colts next few games, they're about to get destroyed by the Chiefs. All right.
I said that to someone yesterday. In Kansas City, I was like, if they lost 24-0 to the Jaguars, what are the Chiefs going to win by 70 points this weekend?
Right. And then after that, and we'll see them again tonight, obviously on Monday Night Football. But then they have the Titans at home. I mean, I think we're both still, dude. They are effectively 0-2 in the AFC South. They haven't even played the Titans. You know what I mean? No. Like, and I'm not saying I think the Titans are awesome, but they're better than the Texans and the Jaguars. So they've got the Chiefs, the Titans. Then the baby horses visit the actual horses. They travel to Denver on Thursday Night Football. They're a mess, but still, I like them better. Then they get the Jaguars again, the Titans again, and then they get Carson Wentz in Week 8 and the Commanders. They could be 0-7 going into that game.
They could be, and that's how bad they looked yesterday. I mean, this is one of these teams that has to show up Monday morning, at their meetings and being like, look, we got to wake up, or we're all going to be fired.
See, wake up! I don't like this. That's from.
I cannot believe that the Colts are only 6-point underdogs against the Chiefs. I think they're going to get crushed.
Is so disrespectful to Patrick Mahomes, and Patrick Mahomes coming off of a mini bye. You know what I mean? That was at home.
The Andy Reid the Andy Reid extra time is in play there for sure.
Like, my last thing on this, you mentioned Matt Ryan under duress. Carson Wentz is a better quarterback than Matt Ryan, but even if you think that they're the same, he is at the very least mobile. And I understand that there's like hazardousness that comes from that, right? Like we saw the screen pass that the Wentz was intercepted on against the Jaguars last week, but like he's a much better player, but they scapegoated him. And again, I hate the Colts because they put me in a position where I had to defend Carson Wentz. That is not a world I want to live in, but here I am. All right. Carson, they were a much better football team with him. I feel bad for Matt Ryan because Matt Ryan's going to be made to be like the face of this really bad football team. People are going to start talking about, rightly so, how he's washed and things like that. This was never a right thing. The Colts lucked out, no pun intended, that the Falcons stepped in it with Deshaun Watson and Matt Ryan wanted out. But that was still not the best move that they could have made this offseason. This is going to be a team with a new GM, a new head coach next year in my mind.
I think you're right. And like I said, I wonder if they do get to 0-6 or 0-7, does it happen during the season? A lot of times, you'll see that if it's just a complete mess and the Colts feel like a team that could go down that road. I think they've had like 6 different quarterbacks, right? These last 6 years, and nothing seems to work.
Do you feel like the Jaguars impressed you, or was this just the Colts suck?
I think it was a step forward for me for Trevor Lawrence. Like, it wasn't exactly the most efficient day, but the numbers were right there, 25 of 30. And you know what? Like, he needs a couple of these like confidence boost performance. I mean, he has not looked like Andrew Luck like he was supposed to, but this to me was a step in the right direction. 235 yards, 2 touchdowns. You took care of the ball. You won in a shutout fashion.
The Christian Kirk thing is, I wouldn't say aging well, but he's helping that team, right? Like that was, people were like, Christian Kirk, like he's pretty good. You know what I mean? Like
he was the laughing stock that kind of set the market on fire because he had never had 1,000 yards. But to me, he does look like a clear number one right now. It was a little bit of a laugher move, it seemed like. And yeah, I think the Jaguars are fine. I mean, they're not a bad team. I don't think they're a great team, right? They're fine. And I think Christian Kirk is fine. Like he's clearly a number one, at least you know that.
Everything's fine. Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Buccaneers.
Boca. Oh, I love you so much. Give us a sound effect for the Bucks.
Boca, boca, boca.
I really thought you were gonna like pirate it and be like, "Arr, matey."
No.
The Bucks defeated the Saints 20-10. This was kind of a boring game. It was like 3-0 forever. And then there was
I kept looking up at this game and it was 3-3 forever.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
3-3. Yeah.
It was so boring. And then the brawl happened between Mike Evans and Marshawn Lattimore. They really don't. I will say, I kind of like when there's a very clear and obvious rivalry between division rivals, like between players. I love that they're like, they don't like us, we don't like them. It just feels right. It feels like football. Right. I think Leonard Fournette kind of got off scot-free. I think he was the one who kind of started this thing. Marshawn Lattimore, I don't think started it, but then Mike Evans finished it. All told, I feel like this week was a wake-up call for some teams, the Saints, maybe the Bears. Maybe you weren't as good as we thought. Maybe the Commanders, you weren't as good as we thought you were after week one. Not that we thought you were great. Saints kind of played a little bit over their skis against the Falcons last week. And not that the Bucks are good, but I mean, it just wasn't enough. Jameis looked bad. Everything looked bad. Not having Alvin Kamara turns out is a big deal.
Yeah, no. And I'll tell you what, this was one of these ugly games. I mean, it was not fun to watch until the brawl. And like you were saying too, it just makes it more interesting. And I don't think this exists as much in the NFL like in the old days where teams just like hated each other and they would hate each other. And it was each and every week they just hated the other team. These guys take pictures and they exchange jerseys and stuff like that. I think the NFL is always more interesting when there's some WWE injected into it. And now, like, what I mean by that is you go to the next game between these two teams. Aren't we all going to be wanting to watch what the hell's going to happen in this with Lattimore and Evans? And so, it does. The rivalries and grudges really make the game more interesting. And this is two teams that really don't like each other. Tom Brady was able to get over the Saints hump, so to speak. This was a team that had his number now for a while here. And just like I was saying about the Jaguars, like I don't think the Bucks are necessarily among the remember when you were saying the top tier of the AFC?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if the Bucks feel like the top tier of the NFC anymore. Like playing around with the Saints team that they probably should have won handedly with Kamara out. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of where I'm at on the Bucks. But still, 2-0. It's been a little bit ugly these first 2 weeks. I think I'd like to see them look a little bit better before I'm really sure that they're going to go on another Super Bowl run.
Jeremy Fowler does a overreaction, is it an overreaction post or article every week at ESPN. And in talking about the Bucks, he was like, they're clearly going to have to carry Tom Brady, right? Like I think we're like, and maybe Tom will wake up. Like if there's anybody who's going to all of a sudden show up and be Tom Brady, it's literally Tom Brady. But they look limited. But these are the 2-0 teams at present time, and there are at least one team's going to join them in terms of the Vikings or the Eagles tonight. But the Bills could as well. The Miami Dolphins are 2-0. The Kansas City Chiefs, as you well know, are 2-0. The New York Giants, we'll talk about next, are 2-0. And the Bucks are 2-0. So if we throw the Bills and Vikings or Eagles in that mix, I think you can make an argument that the Bucks might be the worst 2-0 team.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I just never expected that. But we'll see. I mean, are we finally? I think we're starting to ask the question: are we finally at the end? I know we've asked this before and been wrong 10 different times, but are we finally at the end?
Closing
of the Brady
time
experience? Because it seems like the writing was on the wall. If I was him, I still go back to this. I just cannot believe he just didn't retire after beating the Chiefs, right? I just retire, man. It was perfect. You beat the next big thing.
Mercenary walk-off.
You
1
got
year,
more
one
Super
shot.
Bowls.
Yeah.
You got more Super Bowls than any other team. You just beat the guy that a lot of people consider the next big thing, and it's in the most important game. You crush them. off into the sunset. Now you're back. You're unretired. He's very clearly like in a bad place too. Like you can just tell from the body language.
Obviously we can't speak to like his personal life, and I know there's all sorts of like rumors and stuff, but like none of that matters to me. But throw in the tablet, like it's funky. You know what I mean? Like it just like, you ever like you got a beautiful beard, but you ever like when it's cold outside, you just like you put like a jacket on or something and the zipper catches your beard. You know, and you just your face is like chapped because it's cold, and you just like you feel gross. You're like, I can't wait till I have a shower. Like that's what you really need. Like this is just, we need to clean this up. Anyway, maybe the Giants are the worst 2-0 team because it's not. Again, I was kind of expecting like a 5-4. So, wow. 19-16, the final score. The Giants 2-0. They're getting it done. They beat the Titans and the Panthers. I mean, the Brian Dable era is off to the Giants will wilt at a certain point. I don't know if it's next week on Monday Night Football against the Cowboys, but the Giants will wilt. But this is what you need. BLG has often said that this year's Giants are equivalent to last year's Lions. You know what I mean? You just need some wins. Like put some people in the stands. Like, you know, make some people feel good. You know what I mean? Like that the Giants are doing that for their fans. Daniel Jones is still really bad, but they're 2-0. How can you argue with 2-0?
Yeah, and you know what? They got the Cowboys and the Bears next, so they could be 4-0. Pretty quickly here, which is wild to say about the Giants. And look, I think that the NFL, I don't know if everyone's going to agree with me here, but I think the NFL is better when the New York teams are at least like not horrible, right? Like they've just been horrible for years, both teams. And the Giants being good to me is more fun in the NFL. I think that Daniel Jones, you talk about Dable. I think Daniel Jones, I've never been a big Daniel Jones guy, but I think Dable has made him look like you can win with him, which I didn't really consider that to be a possibility. But I think there's a way to win with Daniel Jones, which is what they're doing, using his athleticism, using the play action, getting Saquon involved. Saquon, by the way, finally looks like normal again, like the player that we thought he was after that injury. Did not.
He
look
could
the
lead
same
the league in
long.
rushing. Like I could see that. Like he could have that kind of year.
He did not look the same last year, and he finally does, and it makes a difference. And it's that old school style of football where you're designing it, you're drawing it up for the offense. And I don't know if like this game makes me feel like, okay, the Giants are a good team more than it makes me feel like the Panthers are just a bad team, right? Like Baker Mayfield is not a starting quarterback in the NFL. I think that's becoming abundantly clear.
Again, like kind of like the Colts to me, like what a surprise. The dude you traded for at the 11th hour didn't come in and like completely save your team, like, whoa, like how shocking. Like, like it would have been fun. It would have been cool. But like you said last year, and I thought this was actually really appropriate at the time when Cam came back and they had the win over the Cardinals. You said it was the best story in the NFL. And it was very cool. But that's all the Panthers are. The Panthers are chasing like the biggest retweet of the week. You know what I mean? Like they're like a social media team on the field. Like they're just like, they're not real. You know what I mean? Like they just do nothing real to me.
I don't know which team I like less right now between the Colts and the Panthers, but
it's definitely the Colts. I don't know. It's tough.
They're both like in an awful like funk.
If you had to pick one,
PU.
If you had to pick one who fires their head coach midseason, who's more likely to get fired first, Frank Reich or Matt Rule?
It's got to be Rule.
I think so,
but I don't think Frank Reich is that far behind. I think Reich has I think Rule. Remember, I was talking about could they make changes midseason? I think the Panthers are ripe, probably the ripest team in the league for making changes midseason. Whereas Frank Reich they may wait to get rid of if the Colts season is as disastrous as the start has been. They may make it to what do they call it, like Black Monday, where they they do make it through the year, but then they clean out the GM and the head coach.
The Carolina Panthers next few games: New Orleans, Arizona, San Francisco, all at home. At the Rams, it's all just gross. Whatever. All right, let's not give the Panthers any more time. Let's move on, Pete Sweeney. The Patriots, sound effect, please.
2 if by land, 3 if by sea. What's the thing?
I actually was expecting like a Civil War like kind of whistle or something.
Give me liberty or give me death. That one I know.
the
1 if by land, 2 if by sea, I believe it's the right.
Outlasted the Pittsburgh Steelers 17-14. This was kind of a vintage classic Patriots win. Like wasn't pretty, got it done, beat a team that was starting to kind of feel itself. The Steelers, if we're all honest, kind of stole victory last week against the Bengals. You can make a very clear and easy argument that they should be 0-2 on the season. Again, the Patriots won, but I feel like the Steelers are the story here. Like, is it time for Kenny Pickett? I mean, Mitchell Trubisky is like, we've seen the ceiling. We've seen the ceiling. We're 2 games in. Again, big shocker. Baker Mayfield on the Panthers, not it. Matt Ryan on the Colts, not it. Mitchell Trubisky on the Steelers, not it.
Yeah, I think Trubisky's going to get a little bit more run, but I was watching this game and
in the bar with all the TVs, right? You mentioned.
Right. This was on the big screen and they had the sound on this game. So I was watching actually this game the closest of all the games yesterday. And it was just so boring. I mean, it was poor quarterback play, poor offenses. It was one of these like defensive struggles. And it was one of these games where you're just like, does either team even like really want to win this game? And I believe in Mac Jones more than I do Trubisky, but Mac Jones didn't look particularly good. I thought they were going to bring in Brian Hoyer at one point in this game, but yeah, I think you're right. I think we know what Trubisky is. Like, he went to Buffalo. He was supposed to be, Trubisky 2.0, and he's not. He's just Trubisky 1.0. And so, when you get to a certain point, you might as well start Pickett at that point. Why not? Right? Like, it can't really get much worse looking than this. So why not?
Boring teams, boring game. Congratulations to the Patriots, though. Get their first win of the season. Patriots very clearly the 3rd best team at best in the AFC East. Interesting times. Let's move on. The LA Rams.
Oh, I got to do a Ram. It's all about the Ramley, bro. Surf up.
Wow. Again, not what I was expecting. I was expecting like a, like a ram, like kind of charging with the horns or something like that.
Right.
Wow. 31-27.
Hanging 10, bro. Ram family.
The Ramley. 31-27, the final score over the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons almost overcame a 28-3 deficit, which would have been absolutely incredible. Both Matthew Stafford and Marcus Mariota each threw 2 interceptions in this game. Cooper Kupp had a fumble, like a kind of an uncharacteristic game. The Rams did get Cam Akers more involved. They did get Allen Robinson involved. He scored the first touchdown of the game for the Ramley. Again, the Rams got to win, but this just was a kind of hollow win. Like, you should crush the Falcons. Like, this shouldn't have been as close as it was. Like, the Rams are still suspect to me.
Yeah, I don't know if they're exactly the same team that we saw last year. Like, that you have these teams where I think sometimes the Super Bowl team you feel like was okay, that was the best team all year, and then you have other years like the Rams and like the Giants come to mind where they just like had a really good month. And I'm like, is this one of these teams that you feel confident could go on a run and repeat? And I'm not getting that feeling. And I'm with you. Like, they should have like shut the door. There's no reason that the Atlanta Falcons should have been able to crawl back in this game, and they weren't able to do it, and it didn't bite them this week. But I think against a better team, they probably lose this football game.
I just don't buy it. I think that I used to think that the Bengals were the flukier team in last year's Super Bowl. I kind of think the Rams were. You know what I mean? Like two of their last 4 games. If we look at the last 4 games for the Rams, the last 5 games, let's do that. You got the wild card win over the Cardinals, and the Cardinals were awful last year, right? So like, not anything to be proud of. They almost blew a huge lead to the Buccaneers in the divisional round. I said 5, we had to do 6. They almost lost to the Jimmy Garoppolo led 49ers. Matt Stafford threw what should have been a game-losing interception that Jaquiski Tartt dropped. They outlasted the Bengals, who are kind of fraudulent in their own sense, in the Super Bowl. Good for them. They got destroyed by the Bills in the season opener, and they almost blew a huge lead against the Falcons. Like, what is, like, where is the mighty team that people act like the Rams are? It's not there.
Yeah, and you know what? I just, that's what I mean. Like, Matt Stafford has a high ceiling, and we saw at Stafford as good as he could possibly be.
I think he has a low ceiling. I think it's just his.
Well, I'm saying
his floor and ceiling are very close together.
He played as good as he possibly could for a month. That's kind of what I'm saying, for a month last year, right? But is he this guy that can do that year in, year out and win multiple Super Bowls? And I just don't think so. Like, he has a problem with throwing interceptions, right? Like, this has always been his issue, where he can get himself into trouble. And I think you saw that yesterday. And the Rams were lucky to like I said, they just were lucky to get out of there with a win.
Boring. Okay, let's move on. I mentioned Jimmy Garoppolo. Oh my gosh, Pete.
Wow.
I don't know how you do this sound. The San Francisco 49ers defeated the Seattle Seahawks 27-7. Let's get the sound out of the way, because this is going to be interesting.
46, 47, 48.
Wow. If I had a vote, MF MVP, why? That was awesome. Look, the Niners won, and cool, good for them. First win of the season. Both these teams 1-1 now. But the big story: Trey Lance breaking his ankle. Very similar to Dak Prescott. I actually didn't see this live because it was happening at the same time that the Cowboys were on. But devastation for the Niners, but then not devastation through the eyes of some people because this is such an awkward situation. I want nothing to do with this.
The 49ers took a lot of heat for keeping Jimmy G on the team. And I think some of that was deserved, right? But like, this is why you do it, because if you have a good backup there, right? Like, you have someone that could come in and lead the team. And now it's just a strange time in San Francisco, right? Like, so you push Jimmy G out. He begrudgingly, in a way, accepted his backup role. Was going to, be that guy. You ended up paying him, and now suddenly he has the keys again, and it's just weird. Looks pretty good, right? Not dazzling numbers, but it did enough to get to win a game against a Seahawks team that was obviously just last week just amped up to beat Russ, and they did. The Seahawks are not good. They are not a good football team. The biggest story of the NFL, I think, this week, though, was in San Francisco with the Lance injury.
I saw a lot of Seahawks fans that kind of just like there are fans that tolerate losing better than most, and Seahawks fans are kind of up there, and they were like, well, what would you expect? This is a Super Bowl hangover for the Seahawks, right? Like coming off of like Monday night's win, right. And it did really kind of feel that way, like an emotional letdown, dude. Again, the Niners thing is so weird to me. Like, so now you're talking about Trey Lance not even going to play until 2023, right? Like, play legitimate football for you. I saw stats, obviously. Check out Niners Nation, for everything about this, but tweeted that Trey Lance has played 14 quarters. He's going to reach his third NFL season, having played 14 quarters. You have no idea what he's going to be. This does change. I think like this is a butterfly effect. Like he may not be the franchise quarterback of this team in the future. Like, they might bring Jimmy back. They might move on. Who knows what happens here? This is a devastation for the Niners. Like, sure, they might win some games here in 2022, but like the future of this franchise is very much in doubt when it kind of wasn't. Like, it still was. Like, we didn't know who Trey was, but like you had a guiding light. You had something to kind of, you had the TV to like point all your furniture at. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have that anymore.
No, yeah. And it's a team that it doesn't really have an identity. And I think now it's delayed a year. Like, you were starting to see, okay, this is the 49ers. These are the Trey Lance 49ers. And now you're almost like reverting back to last year's identity, and you have to, and it's odd. It's just an odd scenario in San Fran.
The Dallas Cowboys beat the Cincinnati Bengals. Pete's Cincinnati Bengals.
That's right.
20-17. For the second year in a row, the Dallas Cowboys got a win in week 2 against a quarterback from the draft class of 2020 off of a last-second field goal to win by a score of 20-17. Pete, give us that Cowboys sound.
Yeehaw!
I knew it was coming. That was the most chalk one you've done, and I don't even care. Look, I'm thrilled that the Dallas Cowboys won this game. I'm super pumped. I'm beyond pumped. The season is alive.
I had the Bengals in my survivor pool.
Oh, T's and P's for you, Pete Sweeney.
I just didn't know. That's what the story of this game to me is. And I know no one cares about your survivor league, whatever. No one cares about your fantasy team. But that's how I viewed this game. Like, it's Cooper Rush. The Cowboys looked bad last week. You have the Cincinnati Bengals team, who I defended all offseason, them saying they don't get enough respect. This is ridiculous. Like, what? They don't deserve it. They don't deserve respect. I shouldn't have defended them. The idea that this Cincinnati Bengals team was able to get to the Super Bowl and almost win it is unbelievable. And they went out and they tried to protect Joe Burrow, and obviously, I mean, it's not working. It's not working. Let me count here. What was it? 6, 7, 8, 9 quarterback hits,
6 sacks.
6 sacks.
He's been sacked 13 times.
And you could tell, like, he's such a good leader, but like, you can tell he's starting to be visibly frustrated with just not having enough time. And that was the name of the game, and that's why Cooper Rush Cowboys team was able to do it. They almost came back in this game, but kudos to Rush. Once the Bengals tie it up, and it really feels like, okay, Cincinnati's going to win. Right. He took the control right back, and I thought that sequence was the story of the day.
I said all week. all week leading up to this game that I didn't think Cooper Rush was that great, and that his one win last year was more of a product of Mike Zimmer trapping the Vikings and limiting the Vikings in that game that everybody saw, than it was Cooper like elevating the Cowboys team. And I think he got like right now, Zach Taylor is more Mike Zimmer than he is, Andy Reid or Sean McDermott, or pick whatever coach you like. Like, what an awful, like, this is, I don't think this, I'm not trying to like get Joe Burrow off like scot-free here. Like, there's a lot that's on him, like the turnovers in week 1 and stuff, but like the offensive line is a mess. What are you doing, Zach Taylor? He I don't know if you saw this, Pete, in the post-game press conference. Zach Taylor said that on the final 3rd down play, what ultimately was the Bengals' last offensive play, it was 3rd and 3, that the headsets went out. So Zach Taylor says, oh, nope, gotta go Frank Wright, Chris Ballard to make a bit of excuse here. And headsets are out. Joe Burrow throws to Tyler Boyd. Trayvon Diggs, huge tackle. Shout out to Trayvon, stops him for the game. Okay, well, Bengals had 2 timeouts. What are you doing? It's 3rd and 3. Like, the game's on the line. What, like, your headset goes out, call timeout. Like, what are you doing? Like, this is really, really poor management from Zach Taylor. Again, I don't think I was like right about the Bengals. I didn't think they'd be this bad, but they did. Like, I thought a lot of people, yourself included, were making too much out of the run that we saw last year. They look more Cinderella last year, and that like it's past midnight. It's 3 a.m. The dress, the glass slipper, like, it's all gone.
I didn't feel that way about them. I'm like, I thought it was so, and I guess I was wrong. I would thought since last year was more of an arrival for the Bengals than this one-hit wonder type of deal. I really did, and it just does seem like we were maybe wrong about that.
Shout out to Noah Brown, who was the best receiver in a game that featured Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, and T. Higgins. Cowboys season is alive. I mean, like, they looked competent, which is a huge step up from what happened week 1. I mean, could you not see this team splitting at least with the Giants and Commanders over the next 2 weeks?
I think in watching this game, what I learned, like, I don't know, what I learned was Cooper Rush can win games. I didn't think that was possible. I mean, no offense. Like, I really didn't think that he could. I didn't think he could give Dak a chance. I really didn't. And I think that, how many games is it supposed to be at? 6? So, or what?
I mean, it depends.
Probably
which Jones is speaking that day.
So probably the bye week. So like, can they be 4-4? Yeah, I think that's what I learned yesterday. Like, I think they could, which is
their
not
schedule. The quarterbacks they play specifically lighten up significantly. They just went through Tom Brady and Joe Burrow, but up next for the Cowboys quarterbacks with their all-world defense, Micah Parsons. Holy crap! Daniel Jones.
They can win enough ugly games that when Dak comes back, it could be interesting. I don't know.
These are the quarterbacks they play before the bye. Just quickly, Daniel Jones, Carson Wentz, Matt Stafford, who looks pretty bad, Jalen Hurts, who we're kind of still like curious about, Jared Goff and Justin Fields. Like, dude, I mean, again, Micah Parsons can kind of will you to a lot a wins. Very quickly,
he is ridiculous. Micah Parsons is ridiculous.
We have 3 quick games to blitz through, but very quickly, the NFL can move as quickly as it wants sometimes, Pete Sweeney. They have suspended Buccaneers wide receiver Mike Evans for 1 game due to his involvement with Marshawn Lattimore in the brawl. If there's one thing the NFL doesn't like, it's their image getting tainted, and they don't like the presentation that they're brawling and fighting during their games. In case you're curious, the Buccaneers host the Green Bay Packers on Sunday afternoon. So big loss.
That's a good team, and that could really impact that game. I mean, it's not like you're playing a bunch of schlubs,
like the Indianapolis Colts or something like that. Anyway, another bunch of schlubs. Let's get another sound effect here. The Denver Broncos defeated the Houston Texans 16-9.
Broncos country, that's right.
I thought we were gonna get like a so I haven't been able to read you for most of this.
No.
This was a really gross game. Nathaniel Hackett looks like the worst coach in the NFL, dude. I mean, tell me I'm wrong.
Why is he so bad at decision making? I don't understand. Like, first year head coach, right? But like, you should know how like the clocks and timeout and when to kick field goals and stuff. I don't understand. Like, we all know what to do in that sense, right? Like, I'm not going to pretend that I could be a head coach of an NFL team and draw up plays and all that. I couldn't, but could I do the clock management? I think I could. I really think I could. And he is horrible at it.
This seemed like like you're saying, like people say this phrase all the time, like if you've ever played Madden, no, like if you've ever watched an NFL game, like has Nathaniel Hackett ever watched an NFL game? I'm curious. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Because, dude, so I loved this move, and a lot of people have talked about this. The Broncos fans were like shouting the play clock because they were messing this up so bad. They had to burn a timeout on a punt return because they didn't have a returner back there. I mean, like the Broncos offense does not look great. I know that you were just, harsh on the Bengals and having defended them so much. I think the team most under delivering relative to hype right now is the Denver Broncos, not the Cincinnati Bengals.
I think you're right. I mean, because the Broncos were just more hyped up than the Bengals were this past offseason because of Russ. And like Russ hasn't looked good in years. I mean, he really hasn't. I think that we were just assuming that he was going to get back to that elite level form, and we haven't seen it yet. And I think the Broncos are lucky to be 1-1. I mean, they could have really lost this game. Right. I mean, the Texans were winning 9-6 in the third quarter. They were able to figure it out eventually, but they were very dangerous. They were dangerously close to being 0-2.
Wow. Shout out to the Broncos, I guess, for a win. Houston Texans kind of, again, one of those teams that kind of like played up a little bit, even though they tied in week 1, they just kind of like turtled up on Sunday. The Arizona Cardinals survive against the Las Vegas Raiders. Pete, imagine being 0-2. Like it would suck. You know what I mean? Like you're way up on Mount Pius. Like you are comfortable, calm, cool, and collected people. We're underrating the Kansas City Chiefs. Not us. Right? No, not us. We knew better than that. But the Cardinals win. Is that your Cardinal sound effect?
Yeah, they were sizzling on that comeback.
That was cheating. We need a bird. We need a cardinal.
Okay. All right. There you go. You took
29-23. Kyler Murray woke up late in the game.
Yeah.
Brought him back, and the Raiders just kind of let it happen. The Raiders had this game, and
quick
they just
story on this game I got to share with you. Kansas just legalized sports betting, so now we can do it on our phones and stuff. And I was with my friend, friend of mine.
You live in the state of Missouri.
Friend of mine named Josh turns to me and he goes, "I wonder what the odds are for the Cardinals to win this game when it's 20-0. Because look, Kyler Murray can do this." And we look it up, plus 2,200 on one of the apps. I'm not going to say it because it's not our sponsor. And
wow.
And I put $50 on the Cardinals. Cardinals come back, they win it, and I took home $1,100.
Look at that, Pete Sweeney. How have you? We've gone 56 minutes without telling us this. The MF double MVP.
So I was watching this game especially close because we just threw, we did it for fun. My other buddy put 15 on it. And we're just like, maybe they can do this. And then they score 7, and like so much had to happen. Like they weren't just down 23. Like once you score 7, now you are down 16. So you need the two-point conversions. It was like the longest 2-point conversion ever with the 20 seconds. And Las Vegas, I talked about how the Browns should be sick in their loss. They should be sick in this loss. I mean, to be winning in the fourth quarter, and for like I was saying, they were down 16. So much, you had so many opportunities. You even had the ball in overtime, and you weren't able to get it done. So
now that it's, I mean, I myself was a little high on the Raiders, but I think we're seeing like, maybe some of that hype, like from RJ at least, was a little premature, right? Like they're still like they need some time with McDaniel and stuff. Like it's all got to like come together still. But like, why'd you trade for the Tyreek Hill thing? I know like there's a lot of salty Chiefs fans about it, but like that is clearly working, right? Like it that has completely changed their team. Like you can, there's no Dolphins fan upset about that trade today. And I'm not saying any Raiders fans upset about Devontae, but like, why did you trade for Devontae not to throw him the ball 30 times? You know what I mean? Like well, what are you doing?
I think too, like, and this is what's tough about the season for Vegas is this is the really good division. I mean, you already lost a division game last week. You got to take care of the games that are out of the division so you stay afloat, because you still got 2 against the Chiefs. You got 1 left against the Chargers. We don't know what the Broncos are, but I mean, who do you feel better about right now? You know what I mean? Like, so you got to get these games, and just to have it, and to, like I said, so many things had to go wrong for you to lose, and for that to happen. It's just, like I said, it's you got to be sick if you're a Raiders fan for sure.
Final game of the day, the Green Bay Packers stomped the Chicago Bears. Our 3-leg parlay from a single game on the look ahead. I took Justin Fields over 199.5 passing yards. That failed miserably. Didn't even crack 100. Again, this felt like just kind of like things, there's sometimes like there's this week oneness, like, ooh, whoa, everything's back. Some people are in new uniforms, but then like things kind of stabilize and kind of fall onto the places they're supposed to be. This was the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers was asked about it afterwards by Melissa Stark about owning the Bears. He owns the Bears. Like that's it. It's kind of straightforward to the point.
He does. And Fields' stat line in this game, 7 of 11 for 70 and an interception.
Gross.
What? What?
You didn't give us a Packer sound effect, by the way.
Go Pack, go!
I did want to mention actually, because I brought up Melissa Stark. So during the Cowboys game, after the first quarter, I don't know if you noticed this last week, Pete, but after the first quarter, who did the Chiefs Cardinals game? It was Romo and Nance, right? And Tracy Wilson?
I believe you're right. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So after the first quarter of the Cowboys Bengals game, Mike McCarthy is on the sideline doing an interview with Tracy Wolfson, like a la the NBA, right? Like after, a quarter ends or whatever. And that happened to the Cowboys last week that's why I remembered it, because Melissa Stark interviewed McCarthy and Todd Bowles in the same sort of way. And so I tweeted on Sunday during the Cowboys game, like, is this a new thing? And shout out to Tracy Wolfson, who I know is a friend of Arrowhead Pride, but now a friend of the SB Nation NFL show. Tracy responded, said, yes, this is a new thing that they're testing on the large big window crews. Kind of a little humble brag from Tracy herself, right? We're the number one crew here. But that's kind of cool. I kind of like it. I know they're chalk answers, but I like the development in my mind.
I like it too. And some coaches will not like it. I know Andy Reid will not like it. But look, like, here's the deal. TV is where the money is, right? Let's make the TV product as good as possible. And I do enjoy the mid-game interview, and I think it doesn't take that much effort. Like you don't have to be coaching for the entire time. Like, you can take 2 minutes to just help the product.
Very quickly, let's make some picks for Monday Night Football. We got 2 games tonight. Do you know how's the Manning cast handling this? Are they only doing 1 game? Like, what's going on here? I really don't know.
So I gotta, sometimes I have unpopular opinions or notions, and like, I'm not a Game of Thrones guy. I don't love the Manning cast. I like seeing some of the moments that happen later when they people will highlight them and they put them on Twitter or whatever like that, and like they can be funny or whatever like that. But like, especially now, and I know people don't love Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, but especially now.
No, but now it's a professional broadcast. It's like a normal quality crew. Totally agree.
It's got just such a big game feel.
Agreed.
And the Manning cast is more of like it's almost like a comedy show. And I want to watch the big game.
I agree with you 100%. And let me say this. I hate whenever we attribute something that has like been in existence for forever to like somebody who did it one time. Like, oh, Aaron Rodgers with the Hail Marys. Oh my gosh, blah, blah, blah. Oh, I mean, goodness gracious. I mean, like the Chargers are this like go for it on 4th down team. Oh my gosh, blah, blah. Brandon Staley. He's like, people go for it. Like they didn't invent those things. And the Manning cast existed before on ESPN's platform. Like they had all sorts of like crews watch different games and things like that. And what I actually hate the most about the Manning cast is what it has spawned. We don't need casts for everything. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to exist. Last year, I really enjoyed it. Some of the authenticity has like worn off for me. I'm totally with you. Last week, I preferred and chose to watch Buck and Troy, because you're right. Now you got some grown-ups in the room. No offense to anybody who's done Monday Night Football the last few years, but like you have a real crew doing a game. That will be where I hang out tonight. Let's pick these games. Titans, Bills, both going Buffalo, right? Fair to say, like this is pretty easy.
Yeah, you can't pick against the Bills after how they looked on last Thursday.
Best team in the AFC. I'm double checking with our friends at DraftKings Sportsbook here. The Bills are 9.5-point favorites. You taking?
Yeah, I think that's safe. Yeah, I think it's safe.
Finally, the Philadelphia. Give us a Bill sound.
Oh, a Bill sound?
Yeah.
Dollar bill, y'all.
Oh, I thought. See, if you were gonna go song, you should have gone with "Can you pay my bills? Can you pay my telephone bills? Can you pay my automobiles?" If you did, then maybe we could chill. I forgot the last line, so that's my bad.
Wow. I don't know. What does buffalo sound like?
What is the sound of something being dipped in ranch? Because that would be like what buffalo. The Minnesota Vikings are 2.5-point underdogs against the Philadelphia Eagles. I am well on record with the Minnesota Vikings. That's where I'm going. I'm taking the Bills also. This is actually my Super Bowl pick, Bills Vikings. So great night for RJ.
Mine is Chiefs Vikings, and I'm sticking with the Vikings as well.
Okay. So take the Bills, take the Vikings tonight. So give us a Viking sound effect. Well done. Rachel Prevet, it is time to grace us with your incomparable presence. You are the most perfect human being to ever walk, glide, or float along this earth. So Rachel, Pete has left the camera, I'm sure, to bring in some sort of prop. So the podcast audience can't tell. Pete's making your job harder, just so we're clear. First of all, your takeaways from week 1. And second of all, who's the MFWB?
I was crushed. Yesterday I was very, very hurt after watching that Ravens game. So, I'm glad that you guys touched on it early, got it out the way, but that was very painful to watch. I thought that the Bears game was it was just embarrassing.
It was boring. Yeah.
It was very boring. I tried to tune in. I did watch the Cowboys game, so shout out to you for getting your win. Woo. In today's episode, I was taking notes per usual, and shout out to Pete because the sound effects.
Yeah.
Whose idea were the sound effects? I set him up. You know what I mean?
Pete was carrying it. He was carrying it the entire time. And what was the turning point? When RJ came out and started singing, can you pay my bill? Can you pay my telephone bills? That stole the show. I'm sorry.
Okay, let's go. Don't do it. I'm out of here. Goodbye.
Let's go. I just want to thank Destiny's Child for putting together a tune that I could sing very well. I want to thank you, Rachel. I want to thank Jeremy. I don't want to thank Pete. I just want to be very clear. Pete left, Rachel. So I will ask you then to give us a sound effect for a Raven, because we didn't do that for the Ravens game. Or we did, but we had to go with the Dolphin. That is your team. So send us home with a sound effect for a Raven.
I don't know. Ravens block.
You could have gone like that's what I would have done.
Yeah, okay, you got it.
That was close. Well done. We'll see you next week, everybody.